Welcome back to the BioGuys series on how to make the BioIA. In this first video, we'll be discussing how to formulate a research question. So, Mr. Donhow, how do we write a research question?
Well, first we have to understand what a research question is. It is a question that guides your research. So just keep that in mind throughout your research question creation process. And keep in mind, the biology internal assessment is an investigation, and the investigation is going to be guided by the research question, Mr. Brown. So, of course, when we're thinking about what are the steps to formulating a research question, we have to think about what are the components that are actually in the score sheet. We will be referencing a score sheet for the internal assessment throughout all of these videos. We will have a link in the description, and anytime you're kind of confused about how to craft a section or what you need in it, we will be going over and specifically referencing the score sheet in case you want to know how to get a perfect score. So keep in mind, the research question, first of all, you want it to be something that you're passionate about. The BioIA is a very long assignment. It is 3,000 words. IB wants you to spend around 10 hours cumulatively within this internal assessment. So if it's something that you're not really that passionate about to begin, it's going to be a very miserable experience as you're actually wrapping up the BioIA. So first you have to understand what do you actually like about biology for this research question.
But Mr. Donhow, what if I struggle coming up with something I find really exciting and interesting?
Well, we know that we've gone over a lot of subjects in biology so far. Hopefully by now you've found some subject that you enjoy more than others. Keep in mind that the BioIA traditionally goes over some specific units. First off, there is cellular respiration and cellular energy, so things like photosynthesis, things like cellular respiration. There's a lot of experiments you can conduct that are related to those ideas, and we actually, in the description, we have a slideshow linked where we have a bunch of ideas and subjects that you can follow if you really want to craft something you're passionate about. There's also things like plants and ecology. There's things like enzyme catalysis, where by now you've hopefully done the yeasts for your lab. If you're having a lot of fun doing things with immobilized enzymes and knowing and investigating the factors that might affect enzyme activity, there's a lot of ideas you can formulate around those. So just think about what you really like in biology, think about what labs have you done this year that you really enjoyed, and then you can craft a research question that is related to those ideas.
Okay, I think I know my topic now, but I don't really know how I need to incorporate it into my research question. Could you explain?
Yes, so the research question at the end of the day is a question that asks the relationship between an independent and a dependent variable. An independent variable, as you hopefully know by now, but in an experiment, an independent variable is a thing that you change for each setting. The dependent variable is a thing that when you change your independent variable, you're recording data for the dependent variable to see how the independent affects the dependent. So the independent variable can depend on what subject you chose. I believe, what type of subject do you want to go into?
Right now my research question is around the subject of enzymes and denaturing of enzymes within plant cells.
Okay, so if you're doing something like denaturing of enzymes in plant cells, you want to think about what could be something I change to investigate the rate at which enzymes affect a reaction. So what are some things that affect enzymes? Well, temperature, pH, concentration of substrate. So I would pick one of those three, or there's tons of factors that affect enzymes, but those are just the more traditional common ones. I would pick one of those. And then for the dependent variable, it sounds like you're already pretty set on something that affects the rate of enzymes reacting. I suppose if you're doing something related to plants, I would recommend rate of germination, as that's something that is very tightly connected to the rate at which enzymes affect a reaction. So yeah, I would choose something like that for an enzyme-related research question, and that does have a focus on biology.
Okay, I understand. So here's the research question I formulated so far. What is the effect of citric acid on the rate of germination in pea seeds? What do you think?
Okay, so it's pretty good already. We have a very specific focus on biology. It's very clearly related to rate of reaction that enzymes catalyze, and we have a specific thing that we have that we're investigating the effect of citric acid. But keep in mind, your research question has to be very specific, and it has to be very precise. Basically, the research question, you have to be very clear on what your independent variable is. Here, it seems to be something related to citric acid. So if we're trying to make it something measurable, keep in mind your research question has to be very measurable because you will be collecting data on it, and you will be using that data to try to answer that research question. So in this case, if we're doing something with citric acid, I would recommend concentration. That's something measurable, it's something you can change, and it's something you can investigate how it affects other aspects of your question. You said the rate of germination of pea seeds. That's pretty good. The rate of germination is something you can measure. It's something you can calculate. It's definitely something you can collect the data around. really the only other thing I would add that would make your research question even more effective is a range of values for your independent variable, so you have specific settings in your actual experiment. And I would also recommend having the scientific name for the organism. For you, you're choosing pea seeds. I believe that's P. sensitivum. So I would have that in the research question as well. And once you have a research question that is precise, that is specific, that is measurable for both variables, and a range of values for your independent variable, you should be on a great start.
So my research question at this point is, how does the concentration, specifically the concentration between 0% and 2% of citric acid, affect the rate of seed germination in Pisum sativum seeds?
Great. So this is a fantastic research question. You have an independent variable, citric acid concentration. It is measurable. You have 5 values from 0% to 2%. You have a control value, which is 0%. Keep in mind, you do want a control value in your bio-IA. You also have a dependent variable. It's rate of germination. This is something that is also measurable. You can specify how it is going to be exactly measured. And lastly, to top it all off, you have the scientific name for the organism. Your research question has a clear focus in biology, and overall I would say that this is a fantastic research question to base your bio-IA on.
Great. Is there anything else I need to know to score more points dependent on the rubric?
So if you look at the score sheet we linked below, this does check off almost all the boxes. There's just a couple more we need to focus on. Keep in mind, you also need a hypothesis in your bio-IA, so when you actually craft it later in the exploration section, which we'll be going over as well, make sure that you have a hypothesis that is based on your research question, a hypothesis that speculates the relationship between your independent and dependent variable, and as long as you do that, as long as you in your hypothesis you use the correct scientific knowledge you have around the research question, you should be all good. You should have all the marks on the research question section. You should be on a great start to getting a 7 in bio-IA.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Donhow. I can't wait to start the exploration in the next video.
Absolutely.